NoSo Countdown for War Games. You are listening to and watching Keithy, the Botchmaster, and Shifflett. Scott Shifflett, how are you today, Scott?
Oh, Botchmaster, I'm doing great. Just hanging out here. You know, we're getting into what one of my favorite WCW, I guess, gimmicks were, and that is War Games. And
Sure.
we actually got a WCW one to talk about, not one of the new War Games, which I go back and forth if they're real War Games or not because of the top of the cage. But that's just a sticking point for me, and I'm being a typical wrestling fan.
I would agree with you. I don't know if those are considered real war games because the cage is way too high, the top of the cage. So if it's on at all, I mean, what would a war games be if Sid Vicious wasn't just destroying people by power bombing them into the cage?
Yeah, he tried to kill Brian Pillman, as will be talked about later this month. But in this one, we hit like some WCW mainstays, surprisingly. Which the match we're talking about here is the Superpowers versus the Master of the Powerbomb. Who are the Superpowers, you may ask? Because I didn't know the name of them. Superpowers are Sting and Davey Boy Smith, Dustin Rhodes, and someone called the Shockmaster.
I will say that in my Hasbro Federation when I was a kid, I had a tag team called the Superpowers that was billed based off of the real life Superpowers, which was Nikita Koloff and Dusty Rhodes. In this case, it was actually Arn Anderson and Barry Windham were the Superpowers. Long story short, Dusty was in the Superpowers with Arn Anderson. Dusty got hurt, taken out, and then Dusty asked Barry Windham to step in, and Barry Windham and Arn Anderson were like the longest reigning tag teams in the ECWF, which was the East Coast Wrestling Federation. That was what my Hasbro Federation was called. So, I don't agree with this Superpowers nonsense. My Superpowers would always be Arn Anderson and Barry Windham.
And isn't that the name of what Lex Luger and Davey Boy Smith would call themselves a couple years later?
Allied Powers.
The Allied Powers. My apologies.
They were the Allied Powers. They were trying to go against the Triple Entente, but it didn't work out. Yeah. So they were picking wrong wars. I should, however, say that this is the ranked 19th out of 23 Fall Brawl matches. And, of course, 23 being the least popular of them all. So we're going down. We're counting down. Obviously, this is a NoSo Countdown. So let's just real quickly talk about the rankings for this, or ratings. Cage Match gave this a 3.4. I'm assuming that was out of 15 stars, I guess.
It had to be out of 100, maybe. I don't know. It's
Meltzer gave it a 1.5. But we know Meltzer half the time is high on skank when he's watching these friggin' matches. So Chad gave it a 3.25. Again, Chad's rating, I think, is probably out of 100 as well. And in the tiers, Chad and JT ranked this at 10th. I mean, I'm sorry. This is a garbage. This is like garbage. It's not as bad as the ones above it. 23, 22, 21, and 20 are pretty awful. And I don't think this is worse than any of them. But this one has got to be, you're right. The only good thing about this is that it's a WCW one, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to like the match so much because I watched it this morning to prepare, and because I don't think I'd ever seen it, or if I did, I was super young, and I was like, I wanted to like the match. I like everyone in there. Like, we didn't talk about this, but the Masters of the Powerbomb was Vader, who was the world champion at the time, WCW world champ, not the international champ, because that's when WCW had the international champ and whatever. Sid Vicious, who, if plans were going to work out and they didn't go to Europe in November of 1993, he would have faced Vader at Starrcade for the title. And this team called Harlem Heat, but not with Stevie Ray and Booker T, but with Cole and Kane, who would become Stevie Ray and Booker T, which I completely forgot about.
This was before they had Sister Sherry. I can't remember if they
they were
Colonel Rob Parker.
No, that was with Sid. They were like loosely affiliated with Colonel Rob Parker, but not a good look. I mean, they originally wanted to have the white man lead the African-American guys out. Thankfully, that got squelched, but it's at some Saturday night taping. And if WCW kept, I don't think they kept their tapes, but it's on tape somewhere. Little background going into this is...
How about a build on this? You know about the build.
Yes. So the summer of 1993, Davey Boy Smith had came in, and he was hot-shotted to A, be Sting's best friend, and B, to face Vader for the world title. So to get there, we had Bash at the Beach 93, which had the infamous Cheatham mini movie where they were playing volleyball with cancer kids in the Gulf, not just the Gulf. And then, that gets blown up. But at Beach Blast, Sting and Davey Boy beat Vader and Sid via pin. So Davey got a world title match at Clash of the Champions. This is an infamous Clash of the Champions. I'm going to get to why it's infamous in a minute. But Harley Race helped Vader beat Davey Boy to win the title. Davey Boy was sort of positioned down after this because the end of the show ended with Cactus Jack returning to fight Vader. This was after Vader had powerbombed him on the floor on Saturday night. This reason why it's infamous is we had this little debut of a thing called the Botchmaster, aka the Shockmaster.
That's right.
So that's where we have Davey saying, "Oh, he fucking fell on his ass right there. He fell.
Oh, his fucking arse."
Yes. As they were on live TV, someone put a board at the bottom, and he tripped and fell. And I guess he was supposed to be he had a glitter stormtrooper hat on. They were supposed he was supposed to be a superhero that made him into a bumbling fool, as talked about on commentary, because they're like, is he going to trip getting in the ring? Which I wish he would have tripped getting in the ring. It would have added something to it, because at this match they announced it's going to be Sting, Dustin Rhodes, Davey Boy Smith, and our opponent and our special guest versus Harlem Heat, Vader, and Sid Vicious. Now the fourth member wasn't supposed to be Shockmaster. It was actually, if you go to Peacock right now, it shows the original poster, and it has Road Warrior Hawk on it.
Yeah.
So Road Warrior Hawk was really supposed to be the fourth member. He actually shows up at this Clash of Champions as Dustin Rhodes' special partner, but they had only made the contract so he would sign for one show, and it was the Clash of Champions. He never renewed because he was going to be the focal point of Jim Crockett's World Wrestling Network, and that fell through as well because, we're sitting here in 2023 and everyone's like, what the hell's the World Wrestling Network? That fell through, but that's why we have the weird thing of Hawk being on the poster and Animal being the advisor, but doing nothing in the match.
Right.
When I was watching this match, I was like, what the hell is Animal doing here? And he had nothing. It was just he was basically Colonel Rob Parker. He's window dressing.
He does absolutely nothing. Makes no sense having him there. It's just bizarre. It's very bizarre. There's a lot of bizarre things anyway in this show. For some bizarre reason, we have Road Warrior Animal just sitting around. Like you said, being an advisor just seems very weird.
And he's it's not like he's out in a suit or anything, which would have made me laugh.
If he wrestling regalia.
Yeah, he had his shoulder pads on, full face paint, and I was like, all right, he gonna wrestle? He gonna jump in?
So I feel the War Games concept was really good for the first few years. And, by the time they get to, and I like 93, I'm one of the few people that likes 93 WCW. I actually like WCW from, I guess, I'm a fan of 91. I'm an apologist for 91 after Flair leaves, but I like 92, I like 93, and I like 94 right up until Hogan comes in. And so I wasn't totally disappointed with this match. It was a little odd that you look at the savior of WCW is going to be Tugboat, but whatever. I understand Uncle Fred is there. Dusty's booking the show again, so obviously he's going to get a job. It just seems, I almost feel like it's so hard. It's so hard to try to write Tugboat or Typhoon or anything as anything more than that, because it would have been one thing if Earthquake had come in and been the Shockmaster, because, Earthquake, John Tenta is a formidable guy. It's Tugboat. You're talking about the guy who was Typhoon. You're talking about the B player in that tag team. So
he was the Marty Jannetty of natural disasters by a long shot.
And I think that had it been another person, it would have been okay. If it had been Jim Duggan or if it had been anybody else, I think it would have maybe worked. Obviously him tripping was weird. I don't know what, if you were to go back and take the board away, what were they going to do? Were they really going to have him come in and wrestle under some, Rey Mysterio type stormtrooper mask? I don't know. That would have been maybe interesting. But of course, because he fumbles and bumbles and trips over his own ass, he all of a sudden becomes a joke. And now he's like a joke. So he turns into a steel worker, or he's wearing a hard hat and he looks like he's he's a longshoreman now. Like, I mean, I guess he went from being on the tugboat to being a longshoreman. I guess that's somewhat of an upgrade. I don't know. So,
But I think he's gone by like Starcade. Like, so like
yeah,
this is September in 93, and he's gone by December of 93.
because
Like,
he's got to be he's a complete failure. He's a
yeah.
complete failure of a person. And the irony of it all is what happens at the end of this match.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that I saw with this match, which you brought up a very good point. WCW, especially like going back and watching, was very good. Like, you know, 91, whatever. 92, you know, as I did for the NoSo feed, 7 Months of Danger, I was the only one that enjoyed that run. I know I had some dissenting opinions on that podcast, but I love that. You know, when Bill Watts takes over, it gets a little iffy, but they start turning it around. And like you said, 93 is pretty good. Like, you have Flair come back, like Davey Boy seemed like a shot in the arm because, like, you know, we had the babyface side. So the match starts off with Dustin and Vader. And I think there's a great, like, you know, if we want to get like, you know, like superheroes where there's all these different universes, there is a universe where Hogan didn't come in and Dustin is fighting Vader in either 94 or 95 for the WCW title, because it did not feel out of place with them two teeing off on each other at the start. And this wasn't 70-30 Vader. This was 50-50 Dustin and Vader, which I thought was very nice. And they were going at it. You know, spoiler, Dustin was my MVP of the match. I thought he carried it well. Like, I think with these War Games matches, like, not to go overboard, I think there needs to be blood. And he was the only one bleeding. He had the crimson mask, as they say. And I loved how he was using his boot. They were taking full advantage of being no DQ. He was using his boot. He wrestled with one shoe on for the whole 22 minutes. Him and Vader had great chemistry. Hell, him and Sid were doing pretty well against each other, and he was just all over the place. Tell me if you heard this one before, Keithy. The heels won the coin toss. I'm shocked.
It's has it ever not been that way? I mean, it has to have been, right? There has to be at least one. I don't know, but there has to.
It was probably when Russo was booking it to make
right? Yeah. Like, there had to be at least one. It was probably when they did that weird. Didn't they do like a weird three-way one
Yeah,
time?
they did. It
was Piper, WCW, and then
in Wolfpack in Black and White NWO. Hollywood NWO, yes.
And that was probably the only time that a face probably got like some kind of an advantage. But no, it's always the heels, and that's how you book a match. Like, you're not going to have two baby faces in there beating up on a heel unless it was like the heel was like Vader could have pulled it off. Vader could have pulled it off if it was like Davey Boy and Dustin, because I was thinking like Andre, and I'm trying to think of like when there would be a guy like Andre, it would be a Vader or Vicious. Like, one of those two guys could have pulled it off, but no, normally you're going to have it be two heels against two faces, because you want to have that last entrant be the face that's the final pop. So.
That's supposed to make the crowd go wild, but this sees how they're out of position with this, because, like, you know, we had, like, we started off with Vader and Dustin Rhodes, and then after that we have I have it here in my notes, sorry, we have Kane come in, aka Stevie Ray, not Kane from WWF.
Cole?
Yeah.
Oh, not Kane. Oh, not that Kane. Yeah.
Yeah, not that Kane. This was Kane, aka Stevie Ray, which I'm really interested to see when they change their names. You know, I would always remember Stevie Ray being kind of a bigger guy, but he was in shape here. And, you know, look very good.
Yeah. Well, this is before I think he's hurt, because that's years later that he's hurt. I mean, he's in pretty good shape up through when he gets hurt, and then Booker T goes on that world TV title run, you know?
I enjoyed those matches. And then we have the biggest face in WCW. Well, maybe second biggest face, because Flair's a face, with Sting coming in at 2. So that nullifies your big pop at the end, what you're going to get with the saving baby face. So we have that. And, you know, Sting runs wild. I love Sting and Vader's chemistry. You know, I get a lot of shit because I'm a Sting mark, but it's the truth.
No. This era Sting's fantastic.
Yeah.
This era Sting is fantastic, bar none. I mean, it's hands down.
And then we have Sid come in. So, like, you know, Booker T is not, I mean, Cole, or whatever you want to call him, Booker T, he's going to be the fourth heel comes in. That's not going to be the same pop. That's not the same Booker T that we would have, 5 years later. No. This is like the Booker T that's fresh out of GFW, you know, and it's just like still trying to find his sea legs. So it's not the same. We're not, no one's going to care.
Having it start with Dustin and Vader is great, because it's two good hoss fights kind of going one off each other. It brings a lot of that Dusty feeling back, with the way Dustin is. So I like that. You're absolutely right. The entrance after that is nonsense. It's all nonsense. It should have been just straight up Harlem Heat, Bulldog, get them in there, and then you get the last heel, and then you could put Shockmaster, and then the last face is Sting, the last heel is Vicious, and that's how it should have.
I agree wholeheartedly. Because after that we have like the next baby face is Davey Boy, and everyone's pairing off now, but this doesn't feel like it's like this match is for blood. Like this doesn't feel like when it was like the Horsemen versus like Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
Hell, it doesn't even feel like even the Team WCW versus NWO, which was rated 22, felt like it had more heat than this going at it. Like this just felt like this was like random wrestlers thrown together.
Yeah.
And, we see that when Booker T, aka Cole, is the last entrant, like, even Jesse and Tony are like, the crowd's going to get into it now. And it's like, not really. And, they sort of already cemented that Davey Boy is no longer a threat to Vader because like it's announced at the end of this. Yeah, it's announced at the end of the show that Cactus Jack is facing Vader at Halloween Havoc.
Mm-hmm.
And then Shockmaster comes in, and Keithy, we've been talking now for about 15 minutes. That was less work than Shockmaster did in that match because he literally got in, put the weakest looking bear hug on Cole, and held him for like maybe 30 seconds. And like there's a time where the way the camera's set up is like Stevie Ray's in the corner and he keeps looking like he's gonna break it up. And like
that's the best part.
Will do nothing. And then like he just like Davey Boy grabs him, and then it's just like, oh, submit or surrender time.
Not only is Stevie Ray looking at him, Sid Vicious is looking at him too. I know Sid's in the other ring, but Sid's turning, and it is like the camera work is amazing. I mean, lest we forget, Shockmaster did throw Cole into the cage a few times before he put him in the big bear hug. So
I'm sorry. Yes, he did.
Softening him up. I've never seen that happen before. I don't think we'll ever see it happen again. But yeah, I mean, this isn't a Mark Henry bear hug. This isn't. No, this was shades of Giant and
the Yeti.
The Yeti. It was so bad. I mean, this is just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. I forgot how fast it was from once the match beyond. I mean, did Gary Michael Capetta even get finished saying the match beyond it has begun before Booker T's already tapping? It really bummed me out that it was Booker T. I would have liked to have at least maybe, I guess I'm throwing Stevie Ray under the bus here, but knowing just the way that things go, it sucks that it was Booker T that kind of submits here. Not that matters because, I mean, we've had some name guys submit in the past kind of thing, so it's not like it was a total job move, but it was. The Kane looking at him was so weird. It was just so bizarre.
Or you could do this because if your plan, and you already know the plan is going to be Sid versus Vader, have Sid beat Shockmaster. Shockmaster's already dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Just have Sid beat him because I'm going off memory here. Next month, Sting and Vicious face off for the franchise of WCW, and Sting beats Vicious then. And then Vicious is supposed to be face Vader at Starrcade in the battle of Powerbomb. So it's just a mess, to be completely honest. It's a little upsetting. I actually had this when I started watching, I was like, this is like a 3-star match. Then after all the goodness wore off, I was like, this is like 2 3/4 personally for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, especially considering that Sid has always been over, Vader's over. I mean, Vader was over in August when he beat Sting, or is it August when he beat Sting? No, he beat Sting in what, June, July?
That was the year before.
That was the year before. Yeah. But I mean, he was over then. He was over again. I mean, this is a time when like people weren't really into like cheering these faces. Like the best, probably like, I know Sting's like the biggest baby face, but I think the most over face is probably Dustin. And it's because Dustin has that Dusty vibe, you know?
And also they had seen him come up from being like a lower mid-card or feuding with the York Foundation, then title, then, you know, we saw him with the Dangerous Alliance, and then like he's with the like fighting for the US title now. So we've seen his elevation. It's a crazy what if. Like this was shit like 10 years ago now on the PTBN feed. Scott and JT did like a 1994 WCW retrospective. And they talk about, like how you said, there's like a clear line. Like WCW had their shit together until Hogan comes in, and then it's like,
yeah. I mean, I guess this is the only main event you're going to have on that show because you want to send the crowd home happy. I mean, this is during that era where like they're trying to always send the crowd home happy, and Rude beats Flair right before this, so you're not going to have, you know, that's not sending the crowd home happy. So this is the main event, so that's why you have to have this. But it would have made way more sense had it been Sting beating somebody, you know, putting them in, especially considering we know it's like a submit or surrender. Sting has a fucking submission hold.
yes,
He's got a great submission hold too. Like, put Kane or Cole in that and have them be the way it ends, you know? Instead, you have him screwing around with Vicious. Vader's with, who is Vader with at this point? Is it, no, Davey Boy's with Cole, so Vader's with Dustin, I guess?
Yeah.
It's kind of just, again, like the two of them have been squaring off the entire match. It just was an odd pairing to have the Shockmaster be the one to end this, you know, and I get what they were trying to do, but man, what a terrible return on investment for that guy.
And as we close off here, the very end of the match trips me out because the match is over. The babyface just skedaddle. Like they are, it's like they just get the fuck out of there. Sorry,
the end,
get out of there.
The end of the Survivor Series where the Bloodline's just standing there. Like everybody else leaves and the Bloodline's just sitting there like, okay, now what do we do?
And like Vader has to yell at Sid Vicious to come up. He's like, come yell with me at them. And Vicious like, oh, okay, like a big oath. And
yeah. All right. So based off of that, what are you giving this as a ranking?
I give it 2 3/4.
Okay. So lower than Cage Match, higher than Meltzer. All right. I'll agree with you and say 2 3/4 because of what Dustin and Vader do. There is that cool, which is the picture we have on our feed here is, I guess it's kind of a double press slam with Vader and Vicious slamming Sting into the cage, which is kind of a cool.
And the babyface do that too, but not as well. Like Sting and Davey Boy try to do it to Sid, and like back of his foot hits it.
He's like, no, I'm good, guy.
Yeah.
So I would say that. Do you think that this match? I don't think this match compares to the build. I think the build is much better. At least presenting that something was going to happen better than it did. You know, I mean, I know that the Shockmaster is an absolute joke, but it seemed like it could have been better if they had kind of reset themselves and not made him such a joke. I think it would have been better, but I don't think it's as bad as the match. The match I think is worse than that.
I definitely agree. It's WCW is full of like these crazy what ifs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that I was talking with my good friend Petey Winston about there should be a show out there of WCW kills, like WCW kills everything. And one of the things is like, it's just because every time anything good happened, WCW got in their own way and killed it. So yeah, I agree. I think that this would have been probably better had it been managed a little bit better. But well, anyway. So what do you got to plug there, Shiffy?
You can check out podcasts I do here. Linking Up Lucha. We're going through Lucha Underground series. We're halfway through season 1. I'm enjoying it. I'd never seen it before, even though the last episode I was on nearly killed my love for wrestling of how bad it was. I do some podcasts on the PTB and Wrestling feed, YouTube Roulette. Yeah, that's it. You can find me on Twitter at Scott_Shifflett.
I would highly recommend, if anybody hasn't listened to 7 Months of Danger, it is one of the best retrospectives of just a quick period of time in WCW history that is, I feel like, sometimes often overlooked and shouldn't be. So I've been a fan of it, and I'm not on that. So I just want everybody to know, like, I'm not on that.
Thank you for
Shift is, but Shift, it's fantastic. It's an excellent show,
and it's done. Like we have like a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like
So it's not and it's a very beginning, middle, and end. So it's good. I think I highly recommend everybody check that out. For myself, you can hear me every other week on the North-South Connection Podcast Network on A La Carte with Keithy. And this was the reason why I wanted to watch this with you, Shift, is because I'm going to probably reach out to you and have you on soon in a future episode. Just
Sounds
because it seems like you and I have a lot of shared interests other than wrestling. So I think that'll be a fun time for us to do. But you can check that out. And, of course, every week I'm on GFA Live with my best friend, Petey Winston. So hear that on any other of your podcast networks. And you can check me out on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Floundery24. Scott Shifflett, this is the Botchmaster Keithy Langston. Thank you so much, and keep watching.